Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Dear viewers, welcome back again to another live stream from Ask Islam Canada. We're here again with another topic. If you're currently watching the news or have read about what's happening around the world, you might be seeing how the world is breaking apart in real life or in real time. And we see how that the economic collapse is happening. There's a rise of nationalism, trade wars are happening, proxy conflicts. And the global world has created this organization, which we know as UN or others like NATO, to help bridge these gaps. But what's happening right now is those are not working either. And recently, our fifth caliph, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, may Allah be his helper, he expressed his views on this as well, which is the root cause of all this, which is greed and power, which is nationalism. And we see how even in the UN and other organizations, the ones that are strong, they are overpowering others. And recently we also saw or heard where Mark Carney had made a comment where he said that there's a need of a new world order. But again, the root cause still stays the same, where greed is the motivation of all of these things. But we are going to look at it in a different perspective from a book that is written by the second caliph, Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad. He had written this book called New World Order or the New World Order, which he expresses how all these other organizations and capitalism and socialism and all that, they're all still based off of greed. And the lack of understanding of God and religion and the increase of greed is causing all of these things to have an unbalance. So he proposed a new world order, and he says that when this world order is followed, only then we will see how poverty will go down and all these conflicts we are having will go away. So today we are going to be discussing on this aspect and how Islam proposes the new world order. Today, again, we have panelists with us. We have Farhan Iqbal Sahib. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Farhan bhai, how are you?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Pleasure to be here at the beginning of Ramadan as well.
Yeah,
Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramzan Mubarak to you and all of you as well who are watching. Zahid bhai, assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm well. Jazakallah.
So it is the first day here for us for Ramadan. And inshallah, this as well, Farhan bhai and Zahid bhai, like it's the having Ramadan in Islam also is an answer to this as well, where it's a lifestyle, right? It's a way of changing our choices and our characteristics and morals, where we better ourselves, and that is what religion does. And even if you look at the countries, for example, America or England or others, their majority or they say they follow Christianity. Even if they followed their own religions, they would see that these type of things would not happen, like the teachings of Jesus and others. But before starting, I'm gonna ask Kranba if you can introduce this book a little bit, which was written by Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad. Jazakallah.
Yeah, for sure. This is one. It's an amazing book, by the way. Very strongly recommended that you should read it if you have not done so yet. And a little bit into the program, I will show you how to access it on new.alislam.org if you want. But basically, this book, it's about the new world order. It's basically a lecture from 1942 that was assessing, back in the 1930s and 40s, there was a lot of discussion about the new world order. Coincidentally, we are also talking about the new world order these days, where the Prime Minister of Canada recently mentioned it on a few occasions. So even at that time, right in the middle of the Second World War, there was a lot of discussion about socio-economic inequality, the struggle between haves and have-nots, and all of that. And Hazrat Muslim Maud, who's the author of this book, Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad radiallahu anhu, who was the second caliph of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, he talks about these socio-economic inequalities, and he provides some critique of socialism, communism, Nazism, which all try different things to fix this problem in society. And he talks about other religions and their solutions as well, and how they have failed, right? How the current world order, or the world order at that time, and this still applies today, right? Even today, the world order has not solved this problem. There are still a lot of people who are in poverty, who are in social disparity, right? And so he has provided a solution to all of this. He has talked about the Islamic solution, which would be the new world order that would be established through the message of Islam. How that will come about, we will inshallah talk about in today's program. But this is the background and the context within which this book has been written.
Jazakallah, Farhan bhai. Zahid bhai, I want to start with you to understand the whole scope here. That we see slogans like "America First" everywhere. Do you think this "me first" attitude, and it's not just America, it's happening in Germany, in France, and other places as well, that this attitude is just politics, or is it actually the root cause of the wars we see today?
Jazakallah, Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajeem, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So this question, you can call it America first, or any country with their own vested interests being first. It's not merely political. There are consequences of having such slogans and having such ideas, or you can call it foreign policy, that our own interests before other people's interests, and that definitely the least it would do is create anxiety and a cause of fear among the neighbors of such nations. And internally, it may even create some other ideas of expansionism and colonialism, and wanting to expand your own borders. So when we look at these sort of things, these are fundamentally against in a society that wants to live at peace. You cannot have this attitude of I'm only concerned about what is my own rights, my own better for myself, and this sort of me first nationalistic attitude promotes the exploitation of the weaker nations. So it's not something which leads towards peace, would lead toward a greater cohesion throughout the world. Rather, this sort of thought process or these sort of slogans create unrest in the world.
Yeah, and it's like I know we've heard it even in news as well recently as well. It's like extreme nationalism, right? Where they're taking their own pride, and isn't that how the war started in like World War? That also started due to this, because some nations were like, no, we are the greatest nations, and they started fighting each other and expanding their territories, as you mentioned, right?
I mean, this is the problem of this ideology. For example, about a month or so ago, we saw that the sovereign nation's president was taken from his own country, right? And if that is permitted, then that means that any other strong country can do the same to other weaker nation, and the claim that this is for my national interest, this is for my national security, and whatever pretext you may want to add behind it. So this opens door for any other country to do the same thing. Then you cannot call them to be wrong either. So definitely this has consequences, and the other results that we are seeing from such actions is, again, the use of force. For example, currently we are seeing the suffering of the people in Cuba, where there is a shortage of oil, and the oil has been blockaded because it was Venezuela who was their main person, the country that was providing them with oil. So this is against a common decency. It is against a nation or a planet, in the scheme of the global things, that wants to be at peace with the whole of humanity, this sort of ideology does not promote or does not allow the peace to evolve.
Yeah, even just recently, the fifth caliph, he mentioned about this as well, that how they have national law, but national law only applies or doesn't apply to those who have the power. And this is what exactly we saw with that Venezuela example you gave. Franbay, I want to come to you where the book that you had just mentioned also gives a whole guideline and everything on this that argues that nations act just like selfish individuals. They want to keep their luxury even if others starve. Is that accurate to what we are seeing with the trade wars and resource fights right now?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, it's very much true. It's actually, it reminds me of a documentary some time ago, which I had a chance to watch, where the concept of a company, a corporate company that is equated to a psychopathic individual, right? And the same thing can apply to nations that are, or at least not nations as in the people of those nations, but the governments that are so focused on their own interests, right? There are ideas nowadays like American exceptionalism, right? Which is the idea that America should be treated better than other countries, right? So Hazrat Muslim Maud anhu, back in this book, talks about how countries are acting like selfish individuals. They are, and this is one of the reasons why we had the Second World War, and many are afraid of a third world war today that could come about based on the same reasons, where certain countries are so selfish that they would do anything for their own welfare without any regard for the welfare of other nations. And that's why we have the trade war, as you mentioned. That's why we have threats being made against certain countries nowadays, where the interests of certain countries are being threatened by other countries, and so they try to threaten them militarily, and even in some cases they threaten to take over those countries, right? And Zahid Saab has also given the example of Cuba. He has given the example of Venezuela. That is happening today as well, and the same thing was being discussed by Hazrat Muslim Maud all these years ago, back during the Second World War. So he has talked about how this is one of the causes of the problems in the world at that time, and that is the prioritization of national interests and exploitation of other countries, right? And that's what was the problem, what was causing the problems and the divisions in the world at that time, and that eventually led to the Second World War. And I see so many parallels with what is happening today.
And it's not just you, like even news outlets there and other professionals as well. They have commented and they're saying that we're seeing the same thing that is being happening in the history as well. I want to move on, and I'll ask this question to both of you: that we know the current system isn't working. Taxation makes the rich angry, but capitalism leaves the poor behind. Why is it that neither side seems to have a real answer? Anyone can start. I'm not going to pick this.
Yeah. So I can start if it's okay with Zahid Saab. So the thing is that the current system, it wasn't working at the time when Hazrat Muslim Maud anhu was writing the book, and it's still not working. We are facing the same problem, where if you tax too much, then the rich people get angry. And if you allow too much capitalism and too much free market trade and all those things, it leaves the poor people behind. The poor people can't get ahead, and the rich people start exploiting them, right? And so the systems that we have, whether it is socialism, although socialism nowadays is a little bit on the decline, and capitalism, which is more widespread nowadays. Both of these systems do not lead to any real solution to this problem of poverty. They would prioritize a specific country's national interests, which we are seeing here in Canada, right, where we are now being told off by an ally that because of their own interests they can't work with us the way they used to in the past. So exploitation of other countries, exploitation of the resources of other countries, all these things are a result of capitalism and socialism. Capitalism more so because the countries are really focused on economic growth, right? And they want economic prosperity, and so they don't care about the interests of other countries. um, so Islam does have a solution to all of this, and I think we're going to get to that in a moment. Yes.
Right. I mean, Fransab has highlighted this point very beautifully, that the taxation and then the challenges that the poor or the other half of the society feels, and the capitalistic system, as the word capital, and we use it to capitalize on other people's weaknesses or shortcomings. That, I believe, what is encouraged in this system, where there is no aspect of compassion, there is no aspect of working together. They do teach ethics when people are going towards like business administration and ethics of business and whatnot, but in practicality, those things do not reflect the reality of the business community these days. Just to shed some light on how the modern day corporations work. For example, there was a documentary, I believe it was done by CBC or some one of those big channels, and they talked about how the food is shipped throughout North America, and especially in US. Previously, you would have like regional distributors who were providing, for example, for a given state, there was one main company that was working. But over time, uh, and those regional were working with local smaller distributors. But over time, all these companies, these regional setups, have disappeared and have been bought by one or two major companies. So currently, there's only three companies that are distributing food throughout North America, and one of them being Cisco. And the point he was saying that the same thing like frozen dumplings or something like that, or wings you are eating in Alaska, they're probably the same you are eating in Ontario. They're coming from the same source because it is Cisco. So they've eliminated the competition. So by eliminating the competition, you can derive the prices, you can control the market, and so on and so forth. So all those things which led to a chance for a person locally trying to better himself, that is eliminated. And this is what creates like shortages or the price drops of certain crops, and farmers not having options of bringing their crops to the market and all those kind of things, because all these things are now in such a way in a system where there aren't any options for the farmers or people to take their goods to the international market. They have to go through these channels, and there they are being, the price is being controlled to favor the biggest corporation or the biggest fish. And this is in essence what is the challenge, where without taxing those big corporations, you cannot generate the profit, and the poor people, they cannot contribute to that sort of tax because they don't have anything to contribute.
Dr. And also, if you see, it's not only applied globally. Like look at the example of America, because they embody this getting rich really fast and not caring about anyone else, and the selfishness that even within America it's causing problems, not just for like Canada, countries like Canada or other countries. Like even within them, there are these same problems that they're seeing, and you see a big change in New York as well because of this ideology that they had, that of greed. Even though those who are really rich, they try to be to show philanthropy and give money to the poor and other things, but it's all about greed. That they want greed, right? Moving on, I will ask this question to Farhan Bhai, that people often think human rights or rules of war are modern interventions by the UN. Is that actually true? Like, look at the Islamic perspective and the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how he was, or he was in part of this as well, as he was the Prophet as well. He was also the political leader at that time, chosen by the people as well. Farhan, if you can elaborate on this.
Yeah, so this is not a modern invention.
Yeah.
The idea of human rights and sacredness of life. These are teachings that came from God. Even before Islam, right? For instance, the Quran mentions that killing of one person is equal to the killing of whole humankind. But the Quran says that this is a teaching that was given to the Bani Israel, which means that it was given to the Jews as well, right? The prophets that came to the Jews also taught them the same thing. And so the right to life, in this case, for example, is something that was always there, like it came from God. The idea of other kinds of rights, they've always been there. In Islam, we know that the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, enforced those rights. He pushed those ideas forward, and implemented them, right? And ensured that his followers respect those things. And the second part of your question about rules of war, that's even, like, there's even more evidence of that. The kind of rules that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, introduced, which relates with human rights as well. For instance, I quickly pulled up this verse of the Quran, and let me see if I can quickly share my screen and show you. Right? So Allah says in the Holy Quran, chapter 76, verse 9, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا, and they feed for love of him the poor, the orphan, and the prisoner. So notice how the Quran tells Muslims to feed the prisoner, to make sure. And just like the prisoner, the poor are being fed, the orphans are being fed, the prisoner should also be fed. So the prisoner of war has certain rights in Islam. He has certain privileges that are granted to him. Similarly, there are occasions when the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Do not kill women and children. Do not kill those who are religious leaders of a nation in a war." So there are lots of wars, rules of war that the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, enforced. And in his final farewell sermon, he talked about the sanctity or sacredness of your blood, your property, your honor. So telling us that, and he talks about human rights in that farewell sermon as well. He said that a black person is not superior to a white person, and a white person is not superior to a black person. So these kinds of human rights, and the ideas of human rights and rules of war have been strongly enforced by the teachings of Islam.
And this shows, contrasting to the wars we are seeing currently, right? That the Holy Prophet ﷺ, his wars were not to conquer or to do anything like that. They were actually meant for peace, for upholding peace and human rights, right? Right now, the people are championing this, that, oh no, we are doing it for peace. And this is all said by all these news outlets as well, that they go to different countries, but what happens is that the whole atmosphere of that whole country is destroyed in the name of peace. And again, as we are mentioning about this book, that the powerful, they get, or as a Muslim was mentioned in this book as well, that the powerful, they do this stuff and they take all their resources and everything, and they get richer, and the other countries, they get poorer.
Before you get to the next question,
Yeah.
if I can just quickly take the opportunity again, I shouldn't have stopped sharing my screen on the same So I typed in New World Order of Islam on new.alislam.org, and the first book that shows up is this one, The New World Order of Islam. And this is the one that we are talking about. You can go to new.alislam.org, download PDF, go to Apple Books, Google Play, wherever you get your books, and you can read it and search for it and go to specific sections using the browser here at new.alislam.org. Just wanted to throw that out there. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah. Zahid Bhai, so right now we talked about this as well. You mentioned it as well, that how the trades are happening with different countries and they're even not happening fairly as well. If you look back at the geopolitical strategy of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, how did he handle treaties with enemies? Did he have a different standard that what we see today?
Jazakallah. When we look at the history of the Holy Prophet's treaties, the core essence was that the both groups of the people, they would be living peacefully and united in a common cause of self-defense, and not united in aggressive wars or anything like that. I think this was the most common aspect that the Holy Prophet ﷺ emphasized, that the purpose of these treaties is where both of these societies can live together, can decide their matters together, and cooperate with each other in times of war specifically. When we look at the example of the Holy Quran, we talked about having the failure of the big nations like United Nations and so and so. Why have they failed? When we're talking about, and how did the Holy Prophet ﷺ succeed? What was the difference? The difference is that the Holy Prophet ﷺ, for example, when the victory of Mecca happened, the precursor was that the Meccans had attacked a tribe which had pledged with the Muslims that they are their allies in times of war, and if one of them is attacked, the other would assist them in that. So even though Mecca was so far away and the Meccans were still a bigger majority and more advanced in their numbers and in their power, the Holy Prophet ﷺ fulfilled his pledge, and he said that we are coming, and made the strategy and plan to come to Makkah to uphold these covenants that he had made. What we are seeing today now, there is no trust in the words that is given. The words are no longer considered to be held liable. Even written contracts are no longer upheld, as we are seeing in the case of the modern day economic treaties, which were signed by the same people. 4 years later, the same people are saying that these pacts that we made are no good. So the Holy Prophet ﷺ, he made those covenants, he fulfilled those covenants. He did not enforce his own ideology or his religion, Islam, onto these people, and allowed them to follow their own ways, their own religious practices. And if they wanted to be judged by their own laws, he opened the door for that as well. So I think these are the main things, that the covenant was for the sake that we both were equally responsible, equally held responsible to uphold them, and so that the both people can live in peace. Not that one can have more or less, or the both together can then invade a third person for no reason.
Jazakallah. So we have learned, and everybody already knows, they can see the problems that we're having and the root causes of these issues and the turmoil in the whole world. So the solution. So the book gives a solution, right? The New World Order. Franway, I'm gonna go to you on this. The book says that it's proposing a concept of voluntary common fund, right? We in the Jamaat know it as well, but maybe you can explain it to others as well. How is that different from just paying higher taxes? And it says that you should willingly give up some funds, right, to help in this cause. So if you can explain this and what the solution is given by Hazrat Muslim Maud.
Yeah, so I've avoided telling the solution because I wanted to build up towards that, and so in the last part of this program, maybe you can talk a little bit about the solution, right? What is the solution? What is Islam telling us? What is the new world order that Islam suggests for the world, right? The answer is nizam-e wasiyat. What is nizam-e wasiyat? It is the system of making wills to donate your money, right? The word wasiyat, it actually refers to your will, right? But it extends beyond that, right? It extends beyond that to your your income, where you say that on my monthly income, I will give 1/10 of my income towards the cause of humanity, right? You say, and you can do it all the way to up to 1/3. So you're donating into charity anywhere between 1/10 and 1/3 of your income for the cause of God, for the cause of Islam, and for the cause of the welfare of humanity. So somebody could say, well, this solution is how is it different from taxation? Well, it's different from taxation because taxation is something that is compulsory. If I do not pay my taxes to the government, then I would be a criminal. I could be held accountable. People could go to prison if they are not paying their taxes. But as far as donations are concerned, as far as charity is concerned, this system of wasiyat is concerned, we are willingly giving it in the way of God. So Islam says, in fact, it's not just a proposal, it's something that is already being implemented. Islam says that, or more specifically, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community says that we are going to find enough people in the world who are willing to make this commitment willingly. And we will eventually reach a point that so many people have committed to this, at least 1/10 of their income in the way of God. So many people have committed to this that all of our needs will be fulfilled. All the orphans and widows and others who need money will be taken care of through this fund. It will create not just so many people who are willing to give in charity, but also it will increase mutual brotherhood, mutual concern for one another, and the divide between classes will be eliminated, right? And it will be a peaceful effort, individual effort, one by one, right? So I've given a long answer to this, but because this is very exciting to me as far as I'm concerned, the way it's moving forward, and we are already seeing it. Like those of us who are on this panel, we have already seen this in our lifetimes, the growth of this, exponential growth of the number of people who are part of the system. And we hope that by the time we are really old, if God grants us that longer life, we can see the system really expand, right? And start to impact the world in a very meaningful way.
And as you mentioned, Ranbhai, like we've seen this. If you've ever, like, people who are part of this Jamaat, they are doing this already, right? And although our community is right now not so much in numbers, but the impact that because of this is found all over the world now. We have a big impact on it. So if you want to actually see it, you can come and join or see our community from the inside as well. Come witness how this is actually being worked or is being applied. Zahid Bhai, I'll go to you. That there's the second part of this, the new world order, right? Obviously, the giving of the money is there as well, but the second part is that it's not just about giving money, right? Though the system requires a discipline of simplicity. So what does that mean for the average person's daily life? And we live in a culture of more. How does cutting out luxuries help solve global poverty?
Right, Jazakallah. Muslim Azharanho, in this book, he has spoken on this topic as well. The one thing, or one of the main points that he endorses, is that you can keep increasing in luxuries, but you cannot provide every person with the same type of luxuries. So the only way to try to bring people closer in their social economic circles is to put a restriction on the luxuries. So if you think, like, let's say, go back 30 years before the internet, right? The people living in different parts of the world were not aware of these luxuries. So whoever locally had more, he was considered to be the most well off, and this is the best lifestyle that we can have. But with the coming of internet and the whole world becoming, global village, and somebody sitting in middle of a desert being able to see the BMWs and the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis and the very rich sort of lifestyle and luxurious lifestyle, now he has access to all those things, so it creates those desires that previously he did not have, or he did not even know that these things existed. So one way to bring people closer is by um, you know uh, inculcating a lifestyle of simplicity. And we see that this is one of the things that Islam encourages in its followers, and this is a blessing of Islam, that it wants that people should willingly, understanding that living in this way is not the best for you. Even though you have the money, does it mean that you need to then come to the mosque in your Lamborghini? Does it mean that you need to wear the richest or the most sort of expensive kind of name brands and name tags and whatnot, and express yourself in that manner? No. We see the example of, for example, Usman, who was one of the richest person in his time, and he adopted a very simplistic lifestyle. The person who's considered to be the first mujaddid in Islam, his lifestyle was very luxurious according to his own time, and he liked to wear very nice perfume, very expensive perfume, and very nice clothes. But once he sort of realized this beauty of Islam, of simplicity, and he himself then chose to leave all those fancy things behind. So this is what Muslim highlights, that you have to create this desire for the people to want to change himself and dress, and not dress, but to adopt this simplicity. You cannot force people. For example, by the way of taxation, the more you tax, the people become unhappier. So you have to inculcate, as the teaching of Islam, Quranic Basab highlighted the verse of the Holy Quran, "Imuna ta'ama ala hubbihi." The other places, the Holy Quran highlights that do not bring destruction to your own wealth with your own hands. And as Muslim argues that one interpretation of this could be that if you do not spend out of the wealth that Allah has given to you on the poor and the needy, that resentment that people have, that this person must be doing something illegal, unlawful, that is how he has become so rich, it will keep on festering within the people, and eventually it would lead to a sort of a rebellion against such people, and would bring harm and destruction to the wealth and the properties that they have been able to work. So a simplistic lifestyle would encourage people to come closer. People would be more content in that way, and they would create less of a desire in the people, and they would say, "Oh, he's dressed the same way. We are living in a similar fashion. We're living in a similar manner. He has a car. I have a car," and So this is the sort of simplicity that Islam desires. The Holy Quran does not prohibit people from acquiring wealth, and we call it hadith nemat, to mention the favors of Allah. So Holy Quran did not say that, oh, if you have money, don't wear good clothes or things like that. Rather, you express the favors of Allah, where he showed his own example that if I dress nicely, I dress my brothers nicely as well. I spend on them as well. This was the example of Usman, that if he was rich, it did not mean that he hoarded all his wealth. In the time of drought, he gave hundreds of, the whole caravan came with the goods from some other place. He distributed all in Medina because people were suffering. This is what is lacking, actually. And people just, turning off their eyes from the suffering of the people and trying to be more affluent and having more and better and better. Yeah.
Conway, if you want to add anything here in the last comments, after that we can wrap it up.
Yeah, I think Zahid Saab really put it out there very nicely. I think it just comes down to the joy that we feel when we give in the way of God. The idea behind this with wasiyat is that if you give 1/10 in the way of God, you're promised paradise. And it's not like a trade, but it's like if you are willing to sincerely put in that much, make that much of a sacrifice. And along with that, there are other things that, those of us who do this, we are called musis, right? So we are those who have made this will or commitment. We also try to be better human beings. We try to be kinder to others. We try to be more generous to others. We try to be more helpful to others. We try to be better in our prayers, in our fasting in the month of Ramadan and in other months. We try to be better in generally all aspects of life. So the idea is not just, okay, it's like a tax, you give this much and the world will be better. No, the world will be better because we're not just giving charity, we're also trying to strive to become better human beings, right? And that's the exciting part of this new world order, and we're working towards it, and we hope and pray that God brings that day faster when we can eliminate these class differences, and we can eliminate warfare, and we can eliminate poverty in the world.
Jazakallah to both of our panelists. As we have learned throughout the whole live stream, that the whole cause of all this distress and turmoil around the world is just greed and selfishness. And the ideology that Islam presents, or the lifestyle that Islam presents, that is the only answer. And the new world that Hazrat Muslim has presented from the view of Islam, that is the answer in which you can see. Even now, people complain that even if they are rich, they are still not happy. This is what we are explaining. It's not about the getting all that, getting a lot of money or wealth, acquiring that. It's the lifestyle. Even if you have that wealth, it's how you use it, how you show yourself. Are you feeding your brothers the same way? Are you doing the same stuff for other people as well? Do you actually care from the inside? So all of these are the actual, what really the new world is all about. And as Farhan Bhai has mentioned as well, hopefully this comes and people can start realizing what the benefit it can give, and all this poverty and distress that is happening in the world, that would decrease with this, the new world order. With this, we will wrap it up. Before that, also, as you mentioned, Ramadan is here as well. And again, this is part of the whole system, right? And Islam is teaching us this, that the whole month you strive to be exemplary. You do the most charity, the most good deeds, and later on, this enables us that throughout the whole year we become to adopt that lifestyle of Islam. So I hope everybody is benefiting from Ramadan. Please keep watching. If you have any questions, again, please, you are most welcome to join us. You can comment, you can join us in the live stream. We are open to any discussions or any questions you may have. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.